Hello, hello, and welcome to Climbing Sideways. I'm your host, Adriana de Cervantes. I'm a mom, an artist, a problem solver, a hiker, a coffee snob, and a million other things that are way too long to put into a podcast intro. I'm your host for this weird little show about work, life, and how we balance it all. Today's guest is Annette Toro. Annette is a dear, dear friend of mine. Our friendship is grounded in some shared life experiences and a deep love of all things cozy and whimsical. Annette is the communications director and a Spanish teacher at Spanish With Kerry, a company that guides learners of Puerto Rican Spanish through the mental and emotional roadblocks of language learning, inspiring them to find resilience, community, and joy in the process. In today's episode, Annette shares her work experience and the intricacies and challenges of working while inhabiting a disabled body. I did not originally plan to have this episode released in tandem with the Bad Bunny Bowl. It just worked out that way. So, shout out to Benito, and thanks to the universe for the good timing on that one. If the big game made you want to learn Puerto Rican Spanish, this episode is definitely for you. All right, here's my interview with Annette. How are you? I miss you.
Okay, very good. I'm good. I'm just, anytime that I'm being recorded, I'm in front of people, I have anxiety because that's just like who I am as a person, you know? Mm-hmm. But it's probably best to not overthink it and just go with it, you know what I mean? If this all goes to shit and we need to do it again in a few months, great.
No, it's going to be great. And you're definitely going to be on the list of people who I'm going to want to have follow-up conversations with anyway. And I'm so excited for this conversation because you and I are friends and we have been for a little while. And I only really know a little bit about what you do.
And it's always that way. I can't tell you what 90% of my friends like truly and sincerely do. I might be able to give you like a top line, like one sentence, but not the brass tacks of it all.
So we're here because like I want to know, but it's such a weird thing to ask or to want to bring up in normal social conversations or situations because people are like, I'm not fucking working. I don't want to talk about work right now.
100%. And I think everybody's burnt out. I don't particularly feel that way, but I do know that is the general consensus at the moment.
Yeah.
So I also don't ask, but I'm interested, especially people who are doing more creative work. It's something that like feels very overwhelming to me in theory. So I'm always interested in like how people make that work in their lives.
Okay. Are you feeling right? Are you ready to just jump in? I'm going to start with the cues.
No, but let's go.
Okay. Tell me about what you wanted to be when you were a kid.
I mean, I think like most kids, I was excited to be something creative. I was excited to be a singer. I think most regularly, every once in a while, it would be like an actress or, you know, a one-off would be that like every kid who was like a fighter. My parents were like, you need to be a lawyer. So I took that to heart, of course, at times, but, you know, it never really materialized into anything I really deeply wanted.
Do you think that they tell young boys who stand up for themselves that? Or do you think that's like a uniquely, like, that's a comment that's unique to people saying that to young girls? Because I used to get that shit all the time too.
I have never heard anyone say it to a boy, but I don't know. But it definitely seems like the kind way to tell a girl she's bossy for sure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Also kind of giggling because you just said that you wanted to be a singer or an actress, but we started this conversation with you saying that you did not want to be like in front of people or perceived in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I definitely don't. And that's like a thing that like over time you realize about yourself, right? Like I love creating and I love particularly music, but I don't need anyone to look at me while I'm doing it. Every once in a while, I will push myself to do it just, you know, for the connection of it all. But it's not really my bag. And these days, I think at some point I was like more willing to like monetize creative pursuits. And I love that for other people. But I think over time for myself, I've been like more of like a guardian of those things for myself. And knowing that like my self-knowledge tells me that like I will not enjoy something as much once it's monetized. And music is so sacred to me that I'm not really willing to like take that chance with music.
Yeah, that makes sense. So would you say the singer actress thing was pretty consistent throughout your childhood, or did that shift as you grew up?
I think it didn't shift. I don't think I had such a problem with being perceived until I was in college. And so it didn't feel so like crazy, but it definitely shifted in that I could have seen myself being a music teacher or being more on the back end of stuff, which is what I went to grad school for, which was arts administration. But it was always sort of in that vein up until, I would say, my senior year of high school.
Cool. Okay, so then take me through, you just mentioned grad school. So it sounds like, yes, you went to college. What did you go to undergrad for? And tell me a little bit about the trajectory from, high school and having those musical interests through undergrad and grad school. And then we'll kind of talk about what you do now.
Yeah. My undergrad career mirrors the rest of the sort of trajectory of things, which is that I had a lot of majors. I jumped all over the place. I started as education, then I was religious studies, and then I was sort of in limbo for a while, and then I finally settled on philosophy because I liked ethics. But, looking back now, I'm like, what the hell was that? That doesn't feel like aligned with like who I am as a person. Like, it was interesting. I think I really enjoyed talking to people who had deep thoughts about philosophy. And I had my own, but like in terms of what I needed to be doing for 4 years, I don't know that was like the trajectory for me, but it got me to where I am. So it's all good. And then after college, I was sort of like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I talked to my ethics professor. I was saying that I enjoyed ethics, but the reason I enjoyed ethics was that I liked the idea of putting it into practice. Mm-hmm. And he was a Catholic, and he recommended I do the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. So that is what I did right after undergrad, and then followed by a year of AmeriCorps. For anyone who's not familiar with that, that's a 1 year, each of those are 1 year commitments to a full-time volunteer position at a nonprofit in an area. For me, both were in Baltimore. So did that, then was doing retail work, which I really loved at Lush, shout out Lush. And then started my grad school career kind of simultaneously with starting a small business where I sold hoop earrings and gave a percentage of the profits to various nonprofits. I really enjoyed that for a while, but I think over time that became sort of like another thing where you get to know a piece of yourself, which is like, I don't know that like I want to be a cog in the machine of capitalism in this particular way. And so that came to an end a few years later. I went to grad school during that time. Like I said, that was for arts administration. And I really loved that. I thought that I would work at a nonprofit, like I had during my volunteer years. But there's a lot of issues with the nonprofit industrial complex. And I, though there are so many well-meaning people and a lot of good happening, there is also a lot of bad happening.
I have stories I will share with you when we are not being recorded.
Right. Okay. But yeah, I mean, then, a lot of bad happening too. And I wasn't sure that was necessarily the long-term route for me. I would have been fine with doing it for years if I found the right place. But all throughout that, starting from when I was 19, I was also very sick.
Yeah.
And so I was dealing with disability and trying to figure out, like, how can I have like a long-term career prospect while dealing with this thing that makes me pretty unreliable at times. And so for a while I wasn't working. Then the pandemic happened and I started taking Spanish classes. My family's from Puerto Rico, so they were Puerto Rican Spanish classes. And I was taking classes from a girl named Kerry with a business called Spanish With Kerry that she started during the pandemic. And she needed like 5 hours of help a month. And that just sort of grew into now what is a full-time job. And I really, truly love it.
That's amazing. I love watching her videos. I need to get over my fears and sign up for a class and get my shit together.
The fears are so understandable though. And they're so like the norm. I hope you know that like everybody comes in feeling like I'm the dumbest person alive. I'm not Puerto Rican, Mexican, whatever enough because I have not invested time in this or I've let it go over the years, which is what happened to me. And so you're in good company and everybody is rooting for you to win some.
Yeah. We'll get there. I can envision myself being more open and playful and whatever if I do it with my kids. And then I have no embarrassment about like being at a similar level to where they are and needing to learn in the same way that they need to learn, which is just through conversation, exposure, practice, etc. I'm going to just tell myself I'm going to do it with the kids.
I think that makes sense to me though. But what I would challenge you on, sorry, not to get like too philosophical on this, but what I would challenge you on is that like the whole experience of speaking your second language is just like truly a humiliation process. It's just an exercise and being willing to embarrass yourself like constantly. And if you can get over that first hump of like going to a class, feeling stupid, feeling like you're not who you say you are. You have no right to tell people that you have any heritage from X place. If you can get over that, it really is most intense in that like first little piece. And though you deal with it going forward on and off, it is nothing like that first little hump of like, I can't do it. I'm not going to make it.
Okay. All right. You're convincing me. So tell me a little bit more about your day-to-day, right? You said it started out at 5 hours a month. I'm guessing that was like light emailing, admin, and scheduling work. And then it like grew into this thing. So tell me about everything that you do now. And I know that that also includes helping to plan the retreat in Puerto Rico. So I want to hear about it.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's a small business and there's two of us. So to say that there's like a day-to-day is not really like totally honest. It's totally different from day-to-day. But yes, it started as like a little bit of admin work. I was also doing some transcripts for the podcast. At that point, any sort of automatically generated AI transcript that, Spotify or whatever gives you didn't exist. And then for a while, if it existed, not able to deal with Puerto Rican Spanish. So I was doing that for a while. And now I do a variety of things. I do, all the admin stuff and the scheduling and the emailing and whatnot. I also plan the yearly retreat to Puerto Rico, primarily serving students who have Puerto Rican heritage. And that happens every March. And truly, it's whatever is needed of me. Right now, we're working on launching a beginner's Puerto Rican Spanish course, and that will hopefully grow into more courses that can be asynchronous, because I do know that it's a reality for people, what you're saying, that anxiety stops people from trying. And if they can have something that's asynchronous at first as a jumping off point that isn't exposed to other people in real time, I think that's a more accessible entry point for people. So I'm excited for that to be something that we offer as well as the retreat and our like regular subscription service.
Cool.
In addition to the admin work and the retreat work and all the other things that I do for Spanish with Kerry, I also do individual one-on-one conversation class lessons, primarily with intermediate students. And that's sort of new for me. Did that answer the question?
Yeah. I'm also curious to hear you speak more about why this job works for you given your health constraints, because this is only interview number 2. So I haven't talked about this yet, but I'm sure it will come up in many of my conversations. But you and I have that in common, that for a plethora of reasons, going into an office 9 to 5 or like commuting anywhere kind of far doesn't work with my body, which is also disabled after being hit by a car and going through however many surgeries. And I have to be really careful about the amount of time that I sit in the same chair for a single day, or just energy levels generally. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, ooh, today's a tired day.
Yeah.
So I totally know what that's like. And I know how hard it is to navigate fucking corporate America with that disability lingering over you. So tell me about why it works for you right now.
Well, I mean, number one is that it's from home. It's a remote job. And number 2 is that because it's a small business, we get to sort of decide what the schedule looks like, what works for us. And we both are really constantly looking out for each other's well-being and making sure that the job is sustainable for the other one. Being able to work with somebody like Kerry has been a real blessing, because not all bosses have that sort of philosophy when it comes to the well-being of the people that they work with.
Or sometimes they say they do and think they do, but they don't actually act that way.
I would say that's the most regular, right? They think that they're good advocates, and they are not. But she is for a variety of things, but particularly when it comes to sustainability, and like truly does not have any sort of feelings if like today my work hours are in the middle of the night, because that's where I have the energy. So that has made it really sustainable for me. The other thing that makes it really sustainable for me is that I'm getting to do something that I find really important. There's such a difficult relationship with the United States and Puerto Rico because of the island's colonial status. And I have so many people in my life who have been basically divorced from their identity, who aren't able to understand many things about certain forms of dance or music because they can't understand the language, who can't talk to their grandparents, things that are incredibly difficult for them. And so to be able to serve as a bridge between the diaspora and the archipelago, like that to me is like, there couldn't be more meaningful work for me. And because it's so meaningful to me, that gives me the energy to push through at times when I don't necessarily have the energy. I'm also feeling better than I once did, and that helps as well.
Yeah. So you have a really, really good why.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I could talk about that for like about 5,000 years. I won't.
I don't know. I kind of love that. So yeah, I think for me personally in my own career trajectory, being able to say no to shit, like that's one of the biggest reasons why I'm back to running my own business and doing my own thing. Because even though the last gig I was at was great and I was sad that, you know, the situation changed and my contract there wasn't extended, it was also like I didn't have any say over the jobs that came in. It was like, this is the project, this is the company, here's what we're doing.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of like a sort of gut check because we were really small. We were only 5 people. There was a little bit of a gut check moment that was like, do we collectively want to work on this?
Right.
But I didn't always feel like I could say no to certain things, or sometimes it was like, oh, well, it's going to be a big project fee. So I kind of just want to make sure I have a little bit of extra financial stability.
Yeah.
And now I'm just back to having all of the agency. So a ping comes in from a company and I'm like, I actually don't know if I want to work with them. And it's entirely up to me if I just want to say, you know what, I can recommend somebody else, but this is not the right fit. And having that ability to make sure that I have that really good why makes all the difference in the world, and does make it easier when the to-do list feels extremely long and daunting and intense. Right. It's like, but this is the shit that I want to be doing. Yeah, absolutely. You saying that reminded me that I forgot something that I did in those years, which was nonprofit consulting. And that, you know,
to some degree. I was working under somebody. It was also a 2-person operation at that point.
And what does that mean? What kind of consulting were you doing? Like
board development, strategic planning, that sort of stuff, some marketing as well. But, ultimately it was my professor's consulting business. And so she's choosing the contracts that we do. So I didn't have quite the flexibility that you did. But something that was really hard about it was like the, feast or famine sort of nature of it is like, sometimes there's money coming in and sometimes there's not. And that was something that I found really difficult despite all of the really great things about kind of similar work, right? In terms of like, it's remote work, there's a lot of flexibility, there's 2 of us, but the inconsistency of it was difficult. Do you find the same thing?
Yeah. Like there's tons of weird stuff to work out, but every single project that I have going on right now, I have my fingers in like 6 buckets right now. I am like truly so excited about the work that I'm doing and the problems that I'm attempting to solve.
Good. I'm so excited to hear you say that because it's really a journey to get to a point where it feels good. Because everybody has a different rhythm, right? It's so good to hear you find whatever rhythm works for you.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to say any more about any of the other jobs that you mentioned? You talked about Lush. You gave them a shout out. They do have the best bath bombs. This is not a sponsored plug, but
I love Lush. What kind of language am I allowed to use on this podcast?
Any and all.
I am a slut for Lush. I love Lush. It was one of the best jobs I ever had. Listen, corporations are corporations. It is what it is. But as far as corporations go, incredibly responsible corporation. And because of that, and because of their social justice focus, it pulls a lot of really wonderful people to work there. So I met some of the most lovely people while I was working there. People just had like a really good head on their shoulders, and they treated the job as appropriately important in terms of the things that we were doing that were having to do with social justice, people cared deeply about, and the things that we were doing that had to do with soap and bath bombs and whatever were fun and engaging and great, but also not the end of the world. Mm-hmm. And that energy from people was like super welcome, and it was an incredible place to work. I really, really loved working at Lush.
Do you want to say any more about the Whole Hoops era and what it felt like to turn something that you loved into a job, and what happened with like the YouTube blow up and a mass influx of orders? And then
Yes. It basically, it didn't start, but it more or less started because I had a plan to start it, and then I put in a application to Sierra Schultz's like small business video to be featured in one, and I was featured in one, and so there were a lot more orders than I expected.
Can you give me a number? Can you like quantify it for me? Because she has like a fuck ton of followers.
It wasn't insane, but it was a lot for one person. Mm-hmm. It was like, I would say in that first month, maybe 300.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, because I was doing it alone. With somebody else, it would have been totally doable. And I was also in grad school at that point. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's how it started. I'm super grateful to her. That was like a very cool, exciting experience. And then it lived on for like 2 or 3 years. And ultimately, I think I don't like being the like number one head of something. And I think that's that plus the like, I don't know that I like want to sell something to people, especially like something like earrings. Selling like a course for Puerto Rican Spanish feels like a totally different situation. But that didn't feel super great to me. And it was also like an unbelievable amount of work to do it by yourself, and you're making it up as you go, as it goes with small businesses.
Everybody's making it up though.
In everything.
Yes.
All the time.
Yes.
In living. But it felt like doing taxes for a business. And making it up felt really overwhelming to me. And so I, continued with it for a while, but it just like did not feel aligned eventually. It just ended up feeling like I was doing it because it was successful and not because I wanted to be doing it. And I was also pretty damn sick at that time. And so having nobody else that I could rely on to help me through those moments was very difficult. But I'm really, I'm very grateful for the time that I did it. And I think it taught me a lot and like clarified a lot about that desire to keep creative things as like a fun thing that I do. And I still plan to do what I had done before. It started because before that, anytime I had like something that I really cared about and wanted to make a donation to it with money that I did not have, I would essentially craft something. Mm-hmm. And so that's how it started. And so I still plan to do that over the years in a way that feels sustainable and not like an entire job.
Yeah. The hoops are also great. I still wear mine all the time, especially the ones that have the beaded rainbow.
Oh.
All right. So right now you're working with Kerry. You love it. You're working remotely.
Yeah.
Does it feel like you're sort of able to pull in all of these different things that you learned in all these other places and learned in undergrad and grad school? Does the ethics of it all, the moral philosophy of it all come back in? Or do you feel like you just sort of keep moving on to whatever is next? How do you feel about that?
I feel like I'm always sort of like discovering my moral philosophy about things. Sometimes I think I'm okay with things and then I do them and I'm like, this doesn't feel right. So am I open to it not feeling right at some point? Yeah. But right now, I would say I would like to be where I am for as long as possible. And it definitely aligns with what I believe about the world and what I want to be able to give to the world. I mean, there's actually not anything more special than taking the language of my mom and my aunt and giving it to somebody else so that they can speak to their family. Like that there could not be something more special than that for me. I think the best that I have to offer the world is keeping Puerto Rico in people's mouths and their minds and keeping our culture and language alive. And all of that ties back to like every one of the 50 things that I did before this, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Tell me about a project or a moment that you're particularly proud of, which does not have to be related to your job at Spanish with Kerry, but can be.
Yeah. I mean, it's the retreat 100%. That first retreat was so special. It took a lot of work. We created it from nothing, asking people to come to a new place and stay there for a week when they don't really know you and there's no proof of concept yet. Is kind of a big undertaking, but it was so special. There were people who were coming who, have family from Puerto Rico, but had never been to the island, who were going for the first time, people who got to visit cities where their grandparents walked. There's no words for how special it is to be able to give that to somebody. Being Puerto Rican is the joy of my life. That is like truly and sincerely one of the most important things about me. And to help people shift exactly what we're talking about, right? It's the same thing over and over again. Shame is such a central part of people's experiences with their identity, cultural or otherwise. To be able to help them shift from shame to something to celebrate, to understanding that the way you speak is perfect now, but if you want to connect more, there are ways to get you there. That is such an important thing to be able to give to people, but also something so gratifying. And it's also really fucking fun. So
yeah.
that's the other part. We do a lot of really cool stuff. We do a cooking class. We do a bomba class. We go to Casa Pueblo, which is an incredible nonprofit that works on sustainability efforts, particularly with the grid in Puerto Rico. And there's just no words to describe what a special experience it is and how proud I am.
Yeah, that's amazing. I will pitch myself. I do not do a lot of photography gigs these days, but I will pitch myself as retreat photographer so that I can go and I can be there.
I love it. I love it. I'm sure she'd love it.
Okay. If you could go back in time and talk to a younger version of yourself, what advice would you give?
Oh, I have so much advice. She was so sad and lost, you know? I think I would reassure her that there is a way for you to like find meaningful work that also works for your body, that you don't have to sort of like give up on the dream of working towards something just because you're ill. It really did not feel realistic for a very long time. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, again, we're coming back to the same thing. Like, I would tell myself to let go of the shame around speaking Spanish and to understand that, like, the shame I feel that I put on myself and also the shame that others put on me, right? Anybody who speaks a second language knows that their families love to make fun of them when they make a little mistake. All of that can exist, and it can kind of be none of my business, you know? Like, it can exist back here, and I don't have to give it air to breathe, you know? And that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, right? Like, I'm still going to feel like, when I make a mistake, I'm still going to feel stupid and small sometimes, but I can let that moment pass without making it a point on the list of how not Puerto Rican I am, or, you know, whatever it may be. And I think that if I took that advice earlier, my experience of my own culture would have been very different.
Dang. Okay. Well, my last question is just final thoughts. Is there anything else you want to share with us about work, life, striking a good balance, or absolutely anything at all? It could be a dumb thing that inspired you, a silly nugget of information, anything else you feel like sharing.
Oh my God, I just like have so many things to share with the world. I really do.
I know you do.
One of them is that like, I just have so many feelings and opinions. I really do. But one of the main things is that like, I hear this phrase constantly from the youngins, that they don't dream of labor. And listen, everybody's burnt out. I get it. I understand where it's coming from, and it's fully valid to feel however you feel. And it's not something that like I feel or align with in my own life. And part of that is like a sort of like natural progression from not being able to work because I was ill. But part of it is also a choice in how I look at it. And I certainly don't, you know, we talked about at some point like living to work versus working to live. I certainly don't live to work or work to live. I feel like either one of those is too binary for how I feel about it. But I do feel that it's like the biggest gift to be able to work towards something. And certainly there's so much to be said about the way people are treated in this country, labor laws, their ability to follow what it is that they're interested in. If it's not lucrative enough to pay for their life, that's all stuff that needs to be addressed. But beyond those like big picture things, I just feel really grateful to be working. I think it's a gift.
Yeah, it's funny too, because it could turn into like a semantic conversation around work. What is work? What is a job? What is the difference between like going somewhere that you really don't enjoy just because you need a paycheck? I'm so grateful to operate from a position of privilege that when I couldn't work for 6 months, I wasn't worried about not having a roof over my head or food to eat, right? Like I had this familial support. I wasn't worried about going bankrupt because I had health insurance when I was in the hospital for as long as I was. I wasn't worried about all of those other things that is not true for many people in this country.
Absolutely.
And so the conversation around, you know, I think it's fair to say I don't dream of labor, but as we were talking about earlier, I do feel so good about the work that I am doing right now, even though sometimes it's exhausting. But also sometimes it's energizing. I couldn't tell you how many hours I worked this week. I couldn't tell you whether it was like a 9 to 5. I can tell you I've done a lot of interesting shit this week, and I feel really good about all of it. And even if none of this was attached to any financial income, I would still want to be helping people. It's like an acts of service thing almost.
I mean, you make great points on all ends. And certainly there is like unbelievable privilege, right? In the fact that I was married to someone who did have a job, and I was, it was not comfortable, but it was for the most part okay. That's incredibly privileged. I had health insurance in the United States, incredibly privileged. And all of that is true and important to call out. And what's also important to call out is what you're saying is that like finding things that make you come alive, and also finding the ability to find joy in anything. That's something, talk about something my culture has given me. That is something that is deeply, deeply Puerto Rican, is, finding joy in all things. And I guess the other thing that I just have to say, because it's like the thing that comes up most in my actual work, is like neutral Spanish doesn't exist. That is, racist, classist, sexist, blah, blah, blah idea. And that when you're approaching speaking Spanish, you should know that. And you should go in with a clear mind about what dialect you want to learn. They're all incredibly different. People like to believe that some are more different than others. All of them are very, very different. And that's a gift, right? Like, that's incredible. That's so fun. That's so fun that I can know Puerto Rican Spanish, you can know Mexican Spanish, and we're speaking the same language, and also not at all.
Yeah.
Which
everybody understands, right? Like, we understand that if you go to Ireland or Scotland, someone's speaking English in perhaps a way that you cannot at all understand. Like,
yeah,
they should if they actually think about it for a moment. It's not unique to Spanish.
They don't, unfortunately. Unfortunately, they don't. They do not. But I hope they will. It's very cool to be able to zero in on a dialect, because it feels like the payoff is high in terms of how you feel the interconnectedness of your culture. So, yeah. There is no such thing as neutral Spanish. That's my soapbox for today.
Amazing. Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for listening to Climbing Sideways. You can find Annette's company, Spanish with Kerry, that's spelled Kerry, online at SpanishWithKerry.com or on Instagram at Spanish with Kerry. They have courses, one-on-one consultations, lessons, and a monthly subscription that gives you access to their learning community. Huge thank you to Zubin Hensler for original music and mixing. Our podcast is totally free, and we will keep it that way. But since we're brand new, subscribe, share, follow us on Instagram, send us a DM. It's just me. I am definitely checking them. And let us know what you thought of today's episode, who else you think we should interview, and keep an eye out for our next episode that'll drop in 2 weeks. Thanks. Bye.